joining us for this month's webinar, Easily Forgotten Cybersecurity Measures That Protect Your Business. We are very excited today to not only be joining with our guest speaker here, but also it's been a few months that we had taken a summer break and we're back and ready to go. So makes sense that this is going to be Cybersecurity Awareness Month and our topic is cybersecurity. But we wanted to focus on the free ways or the less expensive ways to protect your business. So today our speakers are going to be Derek Geisler as moderator. He's here at PGH Network, our Director of Sales and Marketing. Casey Castrol is a host just like myself. She's our Sales and Marketing Admin, and then a Marketing Coordinator here at PGH. Our guest speaker, Derek Mueller, he is the Cybersecurity Advisor and Cyber State Coordinator for CISA. It's a long title there, Derek, but we are very excited to have him join us today with his tremendous background. Looking at today's menu for the agenda, we're getting through introductions right now. We'll hop into the meat and potatoes of everything for the information for easily forgotten cybersecurity. And the last 15 minutes we do have reserved for Q&A. However, the chat is open, so feel free to drop any questions in the chat and we'll answer those throughout. If we don't happen to get to it during the webinar, then we'll definitely take care of it during the Q&A. But feel free to throw anything into there. Now I'm going to hand it off to our Derek Geisler for introductions.
So first and foremost, I would like to say thank you, Nicole and Casey. If it wasn't for Nicole and Casey, we wouldn't be able to put this event on. Again, you know, anytime we do these virtual events, the goal is to educate clients, prospects, anybody that follows our YouTube page, you know, try to get as much information out as possible, but we could not make this happen without their help. I would also like to point out that we have two people with the same name. It's a wonderful, wonderful name. So I'm super excited. It's the duo Derek team today. So we're gonna have a little bit of fun. So I wanted to go ahead and take a few minutes to introduce Derek Mueller. He is with CISA, and he has a whole plethora of certifications and background information. So I'm not going to get into that detail. I'm going to go ahead and let Derek do it. So Derek, it's up to you, buddy.
All right, I guess I can get the ball rolling, and then I'll share my slides here in a second. So hi, everybody out there in virtual land. My name is Derek Mueller. I am the Cyber State Coordinator, Cybersecurity Advisor for Pennsylvania, and happy to be here today. I've been on with CISA actually since March timeframe. Before that, I came over from the Defense Counterintelligence and Security Agency. I was with them for a little over 9 years, doing a lot of work, various work in the cyber world of risk management framework, network security oversight, advise and assist visits, incident response. There's a lot more in there, but it was a pretty interesting job there. And before that, I had different roles in the DoD, contract work, system network engineering, a lot of stuff. So I won't get into all that boring stuff. So yeah, happy to be here. We're just going to go through, some information today. If anybody has any questions whatsoever, ask me a question. If not, Derek, with the same spelling, can ask me any question he wants, which is good. It's you never really see two Dereks with the same spelling in one spot. So
the right spelling, by the way, the right spelling.
Yes, exactly. And so what are we here for? CISA is really here, we're basically here to collaborate, engage with various stakeholders, let it be in the private sector, other government entities. We're here to basically help build awareness and help build a more secure cyber posture, and also a resilient cyber posture. And hopefully after today, you'll have some tips and tricks and information. And if you don't feel like you're getting the information you need today, you can always hit me up after the fact. You can email me, call me. You can ask any question you want. I'm an open book, and hopefully I can point you in the right direction if I don't know the answer. So we'll get started with that. What do we do? Like I said, we really have oversight as a risk advisor to, and in my case, Pennsylvania. We're all throughout the United States, and we focus on not just the critical infrastructure side of the house, we focus on the private sector. We really help anybody out. If anybody calls and says, hey, can you help us out in, incident response or an incident management workshop or a tabletop exercise, or hey, we just need a cyber resilience review or any type of review,
Or an event like this.
Yep, that we can do. Exactly. We do that, but this just kind of shows, if you don't know what a critical infrastructure is, this gives you an idea of the 16 critical infrastructure sectors. And, you may think every day you take things for granted, but you really got to have oversight. You hear it all the time. Hey, what if somebody hacks into the energy grid and we're without power? Or what if somebody gets into our water municipality? That's just two things. You look at the healthcare side of the house, everything's going electronic, everything's in the cyber world. You don't want to be on life support and somebody hacks into the servers at the hospital and shuts everything off. So, everything's tied together nowadays. Let it be physical and cyber, they pretty much meshing together. And so we have various regions, and I'm in region 3. You can see there on the right side, it's it encompasses, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Maryland, Delaware, and then you have DC down there. That's what encompasses our region 3. So throughout the whole United States, as being a cyber state coordinator, there's one per state, and we're usually closest to the state capital. So out here, it's Harrisburg area. And but there's cybersecurity advisors they're strategically placing throughout each state. So at some point, there's going to be a cybersecurity advisor out in Pittsburgh. That should be coming up hopefully in the next couple months or a few months. We'll see what happens there. And then Philadelphia, they should get one hopefully sometime next year. So we're trying to be situated in areas to where we can easily be accessible and to help out, that area that we have a responsibility of. So what are you really concerned with? Cyber threats. What are the biggest cyber threats? Here are the main ones: nation states, hacktivists, and cyber criminals. And you'd be surprised at some of the hacktivists and other cyber criminals out there. They're just wanting to have fun. They go download these apps on the dark web, or they may find some on the regular internet here, and they want to test things out. Hey, I want to do a denial of service attack, or maybe I want to go change some settings on some servers that are unencrypted, whatever it be. That's your main threat actors. And we see it every day here at CISA. We see a lot of, advisories coming out with, hey, there was a ransomware attack here. There was a denial of service attack here. Hey, there was somebody that injected some malware into this software over here. We see a lot of advisories every day, and it's pretty much from all these threat actors. Major avenues of attack. Pick
Hey,
some.
Derek.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Apologies, not
Go
to interrupt you, but it looks like there's a delay in your slides. If you could just pop up to the current one then for what we're seeing.
Is it up? It should be. Hold on. It should be on how major avenues for cyber. Well, it should be on this. Let's see.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing.
Good.
Are we good on that? It should be the major avenues for cyber attack.
See here. Looks like we're still seeing the title page.
Oh, really? Now, Derek and Casey, you can see the current slide.
It's there now. Perfect.
It's there now?
Yep.
Okay. I may have to talk slower and then click faster. So major avenues of cyber attack. Thanks for that, Nicole. Interrupt me anytime if things aren't going along with what I'm talking about. There's a lot of various avenues of cyber attack. I wanted to pick out some things that were more geared towards what you may be familiar with. I talked to Nicole over some stuff. So, you think about phishing. Phishing's huge nowadays. Email compromise, misconfigurations, and security practices. That's a big one. Vulnerability exploitation, insider threat. I think the other year it was, we got to focus on insider threat. And because you're always hearing about it in the news, you still hear about it, but I guess nowadays it's ransomware. So they got to have I think on the cyber side, for being in it so long, every year or two, they got to change the methodology on what they're focused on.
Yeah.
BYOD, I should have spelled out that acronym. If you don't know what that is, it's a bring your own device. and then the SaaS, the software as a service. So I'll just, in the next few slides coming up, give some key examples. If you have any questions on, how it can be applicable to you or how you can defend yourself against some of these, you can ping me, or if you already know the answer, then you're good to go. So email compromise, you probably get a lot of training and other routes of, how to be aware of paying attention to what's authentic and what's not authentic in getting your emails. And, you look at different avenues of really any attacks on the network. Email is probably one of the key ones now. And this business email compromise does coincide with a slide I have coming up, next couple slides up, with ransomware. But, you get fake emails, let it be on the business side or your personal side. You probably get a lot more on your personal emails, because hopefully in your work environment you have, which I was talking to Derek earlier, you have good email spam filtering and filters in place on the network. So you shouldn't see too many of these because it probably catches it before it gets to your desktop. But if you're on, like, commercial email, like maybe like a Hotmail or Gmail, I think Gmail is pretty good at their filtering, but they still get through. Basically, threat actor, they send a fake email, ask for, certain services, money. If you click on it, some people fall victim to all this. It's really just staying aware of who's sending you what, making sure it's from a trusted source. Definitely, if you feel it's wrong or you feel something suspicious, it probably is. Report it up through your chain. Everywhere has some chain of reporting. So, if you get an email with a link or an attachment and you don't think it's legit, make a call. Don't respond to the email or forward it on unless you're told to. But, make sure that it is authentic, that you should be clicking on it, or, ordering from this entity that sent you something. That's why they're implementing multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication for requests, any type of account changes. There's a lot of things you can do to be, more aware of your, surroundings and who's sending you what. And also, I could have added in here too, not just email, text messages. You'll probably get a lot of text messages now that'll say, hey, click on this link or do this. It's the same exact thing of getting an email, but now they're being more sophisticated, sending it through text, mobile phones.
Yeah, that's happening more and more, that what we're seeing. So, I mean, just to kind of mirror or echo what you're stating, right? I mean, we're seeing business email compromise is about 95% of all threats that are coming in because it's easy, right? I mean, like you said, right? They spin up an email account, they send the email. The challenging stuff right now is it's really hard to protect against SMS. There's not a lot of, I don't know, for those of you that are using Apple phones, you can mark as junk and report as junk and things like that. And that kind of helps the database a little bit, but it's not going to directly fix anything right now. So you really do have to you have to treat email and text almost identically now, right? Where you're really being cautious because, you could get a text message and it has a link or it has an attachment on it, and that attachment's dropping a payload right onto your device. So, basically taking the knowledge that you have within email and all of that email security and putting it to phones now, because that's kind of their next. It seems like hackers are always a little, like, maybe one step ahead, right? Really, at the end of the day,
They are.
and then we're just kind of playing that catch up game.
That's exactly what it is. We got to always stay one step ahead, or at least equal to, what they're doing. So that's why, and we'll get into that in the next slides with the patching software side of the house. I'll maybe hit a little more on that. So this next slide, and hopefully things catch up when I'm talking about it. This one, we were talking about software as a service. Now you kind of have two different routes here, and I didn't want to put too much information on this. So utilizing software as a service, you're relying on that software as a service platform. Now on this one, this software as a service platform got hit with a ransomware attack, which basically affected everybody who was utilizing that software. There's another route you can look at as well, to where now I think on the regular software side, and I'll have to back up. if you have regular software, you're downloading, like let's say you're downloading open source or you're an approved product that's downloaded from a trusted vendor. Now what they're doing on that software is they're going through like a supply chain review. So they're going through that supply chain review on that software. I don't think that's carried over on the SaaS side yet. I actually asked that question the other week when I was putting these together just to validate, because I saw the software side, but not the SaaS portion of it. But you still need to be mindful on who you're getting as a vendor for your software as a service, and making sure that, hey, make sure that your continuity procedures are in order. Make sure that you've got assessments done actually on your internal side to make sure if something like this happens, that you are prepared in case there is an attack. This goes with, let's say you have a third-party IT support, third-party web administration. Somebody can gain access to their side of the house, which means possibly they can gain or get access to, your internal side of the house or your internal network. You definitely want to pay attention to that. So this was just one example of a ransomware incident utilizing that software as a service. But if you're utilizing any type of platform as a service, you want to make sure that all your ducks are in a row, just in case they have some type of attack, that you could still stay up and operational, or you can, regain all your information and network connectivity if an incident does happen.
In addition to that, also recognize one of the things to be aware of as you're looking through software as a service vendors, right? So he's, as Derek had mentioned, make sure you do your due diligence. You're picking the right vendor that is legitimate and has been kind of sweated out, right, if you will. However, in addition to that, contractually, your contractual obligations with that vendor, make sure you review those, because in a lot of situations, there's a shared responsibility matrix. And what that means is, yes, the software as a service vendor has responsibility for ensuring uptime and certain types of stuff like on their end, right? But then there are certain pieces that then fall back on the users or the people that are basically purchasing that software as a service or renting it, or however you want to look at it, right? And that may be, hey, authentication methods, the types of software that you're loading on the devices that are trying to connect to that device, to that application, things like that. So you have to be careful. Like a lot, what I've seen, and Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe you've heard differently, but I hear a lot of people always say, you know what, I have that out in the cloud. That's their problem. Well, yes, it is. But it's not just their problem, right? It always ends up, everything filters back to you no matter what you do. But legally, there may be a responsibility matrix in there that says, hey, we both share this responsibility.
No, you're correct, Eric. It's basically making sure any service that you get that's touching your network or that you're utilizing, you always want to make sure that's from an approved or a vetted vendor. That's why there's a lot of information sharing groups out there on the cyber side of the house. You also want to make sure that you do those annual assessments, not just on your internal network, but also on any external dependencies. You want to make sure that they're still, keeping up with their end of the bargain, I should say, or their end of the contract. Let's say you're enabling multi-factor authentication. Let's say that platform it's not equipped to handle that. You're like, well, hey, we got to go a different route now because we want to implement this here because of, X, Y, and Z. There's a lot of things we can talk about, but you're correct to where, just make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to be doing on your side. And then also in the contract, like if it's a letter of agreement, if it's some type of memorandum, anything you've signed, making sure that you're both doing what you're supposed to be doing. Because you would be surprised that you're right. People say, oh, it's in the cloud, it's secure. Yes, but if something happens there that could affect your network, are you prepared for it?
Correct.
And on the DoD side, it was a lot different. We'd have a lot of people taking classified information and spilling it onto the unclassified side. And they said, well, that's in the cloud. We can't go and wipe a whole server. So we had to do different sanitization procedures.
Absolutely.
This next one really deals with, I think, IT. Some of these actions are like thinking like Cyber 101 or System Administration 101, password reuse. You'd be surprised at how many people use basic passwords like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just had a friend the other week tell me, and you don't think just on your IT side, he was telling me about his gun safe, and he's like, oh yeah, this is my password. I'm like, that's pretty easy. It was one,
Yeah.
two, three, four, five.
Right.
And I'm like, gotta make it more complicated. That goes with the computer side of the house and also your phones. I think my wife's phone had 1111 at one point. I'm like, you really need to make it a little more complicated than
Yeah.
that if somebody steals your phone. But you know, there is a lot of information out there. If you're using the same password for every single site, if you're banking, your work, everything's tied to one password, all it takes is somebody getting that password for one account and you're hosed on everything else. They could possibly gain access to every other account. On the dark web, there's tons of data dumps. If you see information out there, it's like, oh, hey, we noticed that your information was out there on the internet. Well, it was probably on the dark web, and they were selling that information out there. And you know, that's where you gotta definitely change your password. Or you see now, social media is a big one. And you know, oh, hey, my Facebook was hacked. Oh, go in and change your password. You know, just make sure that you're not reusing your passwords. Make sure that, you know, they make a complex password, enable multi-factor authentication. Yes, sometimes multi-factor authentication is annoying. You're like, well, why do I want to log into this web page? And then I got to get this text that has a pin in it. I got to enter it. It's worth it to take an extra minute of your time for that multi-factor authentication on that end than it is to have your, you know, identity stolen, account hacked into, whatever. And this goes back to, oh, sorry, I was going one more. This goes back into the work side of the house to where, you know, make sure policies are in place to, you know, change your password on a regular basis, update it, make it not the same one that you've used in the past year or two. You know, staying one step ahead of the criminals. So if somebody does hack into your network, or your systems, then you've at least know that you've changed your password within X amount of time. So you kind of have that point to go back to, hey, everybody changed their password like 90 days ago. The systems were compromised in the last, you know, 30 days. We at least know up to this point where we need to go back and change. So, you know, there's a lot of different routes there, but definitely don't reuse passwords and make them complex. Uh, and definitely implement multi-factor authentication if your environment can handle that. Same on your mobile devices as well.
Correct. Yeah, this is a big one for me because it is not hard to enable multi-factor, and being in the industry that we're in, the stuff that we've seen, like I've turned it on for absolutely anytime I create an account for anything, it's like, oh, where's MFA at? If it's not there, it's like, yeah, I don't really want this anymore. Like I don't want to do it because, you
Yep.
know, the passwords get leaked constantly. So with that being said, Derek, do you have recommendations on, so you have mitigations there and you have, you know, check email against, you know, usernames against known breach databases. What's your recommendation on where to go to look at those breach databases? Do you have any, like, is it Have I Been Pwned? Is it, you know, where do you recommend?
There's some out there. We have some internal information that comes out once in a while, but really on the commercial side, you really just got to go out to some of the information sharing sites like the MSI SACs and those InfraGards. They'll come out with like, you know, hey, this is what's been breached or this is what's out there. I don't have it on here. Like I said, if we went through all these slides that I can create information on, we'd be here for a week.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'm so scared to, you know, to write down any passwords. Well, yeah, don't write down passwords, but use a password manager. Use an encrypted password manager. I don't know what your policies or procedures are internally, or what you would want to tell your customers, but say, hey, you got to remember a password pretty much for, you know, 20, 30 different sites. It seems like me, it seems like it's like 50. But you got to remember a password for everything. So I use a password manager. It's encrypted because I'm getting older, and the older I get, I can't remember as much. So especially remembering 14 to 18 character long passwords, and I have to change them on a regular basis. And apparently they don't stay on the same cycle with changing them. So I would definitely implement that if you can't implement multi-factor authentication.
Absolutely. And actually we recommend both, right? We at PGH, we deploy LastPass, or we recommend LastPass as a password
Okay.
manager. There's a ton of viable ones, right? There's 1Password. And honestly, this has a built-in password manager, your iPhone, right?
Yep.
It's a very well built password manager. If you are using merely just Apple products, this is a fantastic password manager for you. This is all you need, right? iOS gives you everything you need, gives you recommended suggested passwords, things like that. If you are using Windows, then you should look at a viable password manager. Some of them are free, some of them cost money, but it's all in the grand scheme of things very minimal in comparison to a breach. So I agree with you on that.
Yeah, no, that was a good point on the mobile. I remember mobile phones, and it's like, okay, got to go with the iOS platform. You're correct.
Yeah.
Use case. This one is dealing with software, outdated software that why you really need a patch. So, you look at, and Log4j was a huge one. You know, Java, you want to update any software, any operating system information, even on your phones. It seems like weekly you're coming out with new iOS updates, and trying to train the family and like make sure your phone's up to date, make sure your computer's up to date. It's a battle just at home, let alone being out there in the real world with trying to tell everybody why they need to update, their systems and patch. And it's really, for example, if nobody knows what software patching is or anything, that somebody's found a vulnerability in a file version to where, hey, we can exploit this, we can inject some code, we can inject some malware or whatever it is, and gain access to, either the system, the network, whatever it is. So when you patch a system, it's really, you're getting that file version to a non-vulnerable version. So that's why you're constantly seeing these iOS updates or Droid updates, Windows, Linux, whatever you're upgrading out there, they're upgrading them to a non-vulnerable version because they found out, in any advisories or databases that, hey, somebody was able to, gain access to this system because of this file or this file version or this operating system version. So Log4j was probably a huge one. If they would have actually updated the systems, it may not have happened, may have. You never know. But really, to mitigate stuff like that, staying on top of the vulnerability scans, making sure that your configurations are in order on your system, whatever standards you're following. And the other thing, this actually has on the bottom here, if that software bill of materials, this goes back to what I was talking about under the SaaS side. The software bill of materials is basically looking at software and going through that whole supply chain piece of it, going through, the coding and everything on how it's built. And like I said, I don't think it's on the SaaS side, but on other software, they're trying to lead that initiative to make sure that, software, if you're downloading it, where could the vulnerabilities be at? Where's the risk? And I think that's a pretty good initiative they're leading there, because most of the time, go ahead.
So what you're saying is, so this software bill of materials is kind of like, from a supply chain standpoint, it's like, how many people have touched this? And do we have any worries about any of these people that have been involved in this, that it could essentially be, there could be some vulnerabilities put in there on purpose almost? It almost sounds like, is that fair?
Yep. You're looking at that. And, if they may have done this on Kaspersky back in the day, it would have been the same thing. They would have found all these flaws that could have happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. If you look that up, it's on the CISA page.
Oh,
They
okay.
got some information out there, more than I have on here, but it's pretty neat initiative they got going there. And it may change one day. Maybe I'm completely wrong that they're not looking at the SaaS side, but like I said, for now, they're looking at the regular software side.
I mean, that's something that's been missing for a while, and that's huge, right? Because they do that
Yep.
with cars and really everything, and now it's a digital world,
Yep. And I did a brief not long ago. You'll have to look this up. They're doing a cyber security essential, basically, of smart cars, how to hack into smart cars. They got those courses now. I'm going to probably hopefully take one next year when it's more hashed out. But I think that's pretty interesting in itself.
We're in a very we're kind of like in Pittsburgh, we're kind of ground zero of the smart car kind of setup, right? Because we have multiple smart car companies that are headquartered here in Pittsburgh.
Right.
So, it's a kind of a big industry for us, So yeah, for all you folks that are in Pittsburgh,
Yeah,
don't get
there you go.
your smart car hacked.
Insider. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I'm good.
No, insider threat's the next one, big thing. If nobody knows what an insider threat is, you've missed the stories on the Snowdens, the Mannings, the DoD contractors printing off documents and walking out with them. Or I think it was Holiday or something. There was another one that was just a few years ago, but insider threat, it could be an internal or external threat. They say insider, but it's somebody who has access, on the internal side of your operations. And I just picked out a few here. The Tesla one, you got to be vigilant in basically understanding and noticing how could an insider, how could somebody turn into an insider, or was there already an insider in the different parts of the world and the different whatever you're doing, if it's the educational side, if it's a critical infrastructure side, if it's consulting, if it's you're providing a service, you got to look at how can an insider cause harm? What would they gain from stealing the information? How to detect it? I would bore you if I went through all the insider threat stuff, but my slides are going to be shared, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. All these parts on the bottom here is really good tools, techniques, a lot of good information on it. If you don't even know what insider threat is, it helps you understand what it is. It helps you create a training. I think it's pretty good creating a training program for insider threat and for reporting. All that information in there is really good information. If you take anything away, take a look at that stuff. You'd be surprised if you go online and you look at insider threat. I guess the big thing is you don't want your proprietary information stolen. So if you are doing something that is a niche to where you have a service in it and you do specific work, you don't want that information leaking to a competitor. That's a big thing. Or if you look at I didn't put any of the DoD stuff on here, but most of it is going to be monetary. You're going to get money. Somebody wants to sell that information for money. That's the other thing you got to look for. But it gives you some of the tips and tricks on how to pinpoint, hey, maybe you got this disgruntled worker and he's working late hours, or, you got somebody that has been talking negatively, or they show an allegiance to some other place that, is a competitor or a foreign entity. There's a lot of different routes you can go in the insider threat. They have lots of training out there on insider threats. And it's something pretty neat to go through. I used to deal a lot on the insider threat side. I actually caught a couple, folks stealing information. So not here, it is a previous job, but it's pretty interesting on what you can do and how to detect things.
It's extremely common. Like, I mean, it could be anything from, a salesperson pulling down the database before they leave, so they have their client list. Or this is a hard one, like BYOD devices. And we're going to get into that, right? So I don't want to steal too much thunder, but that's definitely part of that could be an insider threat concern that we'll get into. But in the grand scheme of things, right, you have authentication, authorization, and accounting. That's really what it comes down to. And it's just making sure that, people have to authenticate to get into your systems. They need to be authorized to get into specific areas of that system, right? And you have to make sure that you're accounting, or you're keeping track of where they have access to and why they have access, right? You want people to have as limited amount of access. They need access to only the tools that they need to do their job, right?
Yep.
There's the days of basically giving everyone access to everything is kind of dead because of the way the businesses have kind of adjusted nowadays. Like, businesses aren't behind a firewall anymore, or that like central point, right? It's everything is everywhere now, right? You got stuff in Dropbox, you got stuff in SharePoint, I got stuff in SaaS applications.
Yep.
My Outlook is my email is hosted. So you have to be very, very cautious around what you're giving people access to, because the more access that you give to people, the harder it is to mitigate against these threats. Grand scheme of things.
No, you're correct. And just a few key points on that. You think of the evolution of different policies and procedures that have changed since insider threats. You look at separation of duties, least functionality. You look at logging, a lot of logging. You log different things now. You don't want to have somebody plugging in USB drives or portable devices. You lock down your ports. There's a lot of things. You look at Even downloading, you set thresholds on downloading, or you have two-factor authentication, like two people got to validate that this person has a need to download this. The latest one I would say is logging print jobs, because people can print stuff out and it was never really logged before, and now you think we have smart printers and everything else, so you got to log that as well. So there's a ton of stuff that you can actually look at on the insider threat side. So yeah, that's a good one. But going right into your BYOD side, BYOD is huge. It is basically you're bringing your own device, and you're wherever you work at, are like, hey, yeah, you can use your personal phone for checking your emails, your work emails, or if you want to do work on it, it cuts down on the cost at the organization. But that opens up a whole new can of worms to where that's not being monitored unless you're going through some type of mobile device management on a bring your own device, which probably isn't too many out there that do that, but I guess if they do, then that's good for them. Where you can have access to specific files and folders and whatnot. But BYOD is hard because if I'm sitting here working on my work laptop, I can sit here and just start taking pictures of whatever. Nobody's even going to know that I'm taking pictures of all this information. So I'm not downloading it. I'm not doing anything against company policy. I'm taking that. But if an organization creates their own policies, that's a big thing. Have something in a policy that can show these can be the legal issues you could face if you do XYZ with your BYOD, and that could be one of them. There is a whole bunch of stuff in there that you can do. Don't share your information on social media. The picture side of it. Don't download files on your personal phone unless it's in an approved work folder. Just different things. I don't want to recreate the wheel, but NIST, anything you really think about, NIST has some awesome publications. Let it be a cybersecurity framework, that's the CSF side. If you want to do a whole risk management review, the 853, the 800, 171s, controlled unclassified information. Then you have the NIST pubs here, the 114 and 16, or 114 and 46. That's dealing with telework and BYOD. If you think in the last few years, there's a bigger focus on working from home, hybrid, remote, whatever you want to call it. You really need to create new policies and procedures to, kind of gear towards who's working at home and who's utilizing any type of BYOD or work device. So these are two really good publications to go to and, kind of help build your own policies and procedures for BYOD.
The funny thing is this is probably the easiest thing out of all of it is actually writing the policies, but the majority of companies that we deal with don't have any of it written down. There might be, a nudge wink. Yeah, this is what we do. This is how we have it configured. But like literally taking that and writing it on policies and then telling everybody, hey, here's where our policies sit. And then constantly reviewing those policies, right? Because BYOD is tricky. I understand the financial implications of BYOD, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's savings there because you don't have to buy as a business owner, you don't have to buy cell phones. Maybe you don't have to buy a laptop or a computer. You're giving somebody the ability to use whatever they want to, so whatever they're comfortable with, right? So I'm a Mac guy, right? I've always I switched. I came to the dark side a few years back, but going back to Windows would be tricky for me now. Like I've been doing Mac for so long, I'd have to kind of relearn everything. So like I like Mac. So if I were to go somewhere and they were like, hey, we're a Windows shop, but you have the ability that you can bring your own Mac if you want and use that, I'd be like, oh, great. But there's some ramifications, like you mentioned, behind it, right? You have to make sure that you're really securing and only giving them access to what very specific things, and then having that documentation to back up, like, hey, here's the policies that we have. If you use this, don't do this. That's not preventing them from doing it.
Yeah.
It's just basically putting it on paper and saying, don't do this. This is not what we want. And then you have to follow that along with the configuration and the programming in order to ensure that they can't do certain things.
Yeah. And the other thing is, if you find out they have been doing certain things, then you could come back and say, now you're going to face these legal issues because this was written in our policy or procedures and you didn't do it. But the one thing I skipped right over on here, ransomware. Now you're hearing, if you have BYOD and somebody does infiltrate the network and they find out, hey, everybody has these personal devices, you could be hit with a ransomware incident as well. So, that's something to think about. Like I said, your computers now just aren't the your laptops or your iPads or whatever, you're carrying around, your iPhones and your droids or whatever you're carrying around. Those are your personal computers, and they can be hit just the same as your desktops. I'll fly through the next few slides. These are just some overviews. We get a lot of updates, and I know this is back in April, but we get them constantly. If I kept updating these, I'd be doing it every single day. But this is what we get. This is what CISA releases, just updates on what's going on. And it's showing you who's doing what, and what's the vulnerability, what's the alert, who's it affecting. So pay attention. So if you go under the CISA.gov page under the alerts, you'll see a lot of them. It's pretty good to always sign up for the advisories and alerts just to get that information. Shields Up. This is a really big push on the Shields Up side of the house. It's basically, what do you want to do? Build that wall. How do you protect yourself, if it be at home or at work? And you always got to think about this. Whatever you're doing at work, you probably want to do at home as well, because if you're being targeted, they're going to get to you at somewhere or another. They're going to look at your LinkedIn profile and say, ooh, this person makes this widget for this, or this person does that. And then, they're going to try to gain access this way, and then they may gain access to the work side. So always make sure you're paying attention on what you're doing. And this is just some tips and tricks. The Shields Up page is really good. Same thing, CISA.gov, the Shields Up. This gives you the steps you can take at work and at home to be more secure. So the key ones: multi-factor authentication, logging. If you're at work, definitely log everything, back everything up. Always make sure you're backing stuff up, even at home. Many years ago when we used to have an actual digital camera. I mean, everybody uses their phone now, but digital camera had thousands and thousands of pictures taken. I took my personal laptop on a plane, and somehow the X-ray machine or something fried my old hard drive. So I didn't back anything up. So I kind of learned by trial and error and mistake. But this is actually before I was in the IT side. You want to make sure everything's backed up. So, if something does happen, you can get back up to operations easily. Or on the home side, you haven't lost all your family pictures or whatever else you keep on your phone. But those are just some highlights, but they give you a lot of really good information there on the Shields Up side.
That's fantastic.
2 slides here. What can you do today versus tomorrow? And then I'm going to talk about leadership next. What can you do today? Not everything in the cyber side costs money. There's a lot of free resources out there, a lot of free procedures that you can do. Simple steps that you can do is, make sure you inventory everything. Make sure you have an understanding. What's your footprint? What do you have? What are your systems? Think of people, information, technology, and facilities. It's definitely, I missed one on there, but facilities is another one, PITF. You want to make sure you understand what you have oversight of and what's touching what. Multi-factor authentication, like Derek said, it's easy to turn on most things nowadays. Implement that even at home. Banking, definitely a plus. Back everything up. Develop a good patch management process. Another thing, people think, oh, I don't have to update this today, I'll do it next month. Within that time, if you haven't done those upgrades, that could be that window of opportunity for a threat actor to gain access. Tomorrow, it's just telling steps of what you can do tomorrow. Go through your multi-factor authentication side for identity and access management. See where you can and can't do it. Write that down on a plan. If you have old systems out there, I don't even know if anybody even uses Windows XP anymore or Windows 2000 servers, whatever you're using. Make sure that you have a list of that as well. It's always good to list everything out and write it out. Don't keep it in your head, because if you quit, the next person has no clue what you were doing or where you were at. So that's why you want to document everything, because there's always turnover, there's always new employees coming in, there's always some new process that's come out. So it's always good to have things documented. Now for leaders,
so can you bounce that slide back one more time?
Yep.
One thing I just want to point out is I agree primarily with everything he's stating here today, with the today and tomorrow. However, with a caution, I personally think the first 2 items on the tomorrow side need to be on the today side. So if you have anything that is end of life and you do not have MFA turned on, you're already at a threat. You're already being threatened, and you need to get that taken care of ASAP. Like if you're still using Windows 7 computers, or you don't have MFA turned on, or you have Windows Server 2008 or even 2012 R1, it's time. You got to do it because there are threats all over the place. And these are easy. This is low hanging fruit, guys. Like, in addition to that, the other things as far as patching is concerned, I just want to point out the easy ones is like that people don't do a lot. Chrome, update your Chrome.
Yep.
That's your browser, right? Make sure your browser is updated and secure. Java is another one, right? And Java is being used less and less nowadays. But if you do have Java, and you make sure that's a very easy entry for people. So a lot of people will be like, oh, my stuff's patched. And normally they're just like, hey, my Microsoft, my operating system patched. Well, these third-party applications need to make sure that they're patched as well, because there's tons of vulnerabilities on those as well. So sorry about that.
No, you're absolutely correct. These can all be under the same list. They're just saying, hey, what can you easily do today versus tomorrow? But no, I agree with you. Next one, and I know I got a few more minutes for Q&A or whatever. But
time. Go ahead.
Organizational leaders, coming from previous jobs, leaders, they were like, telling you what to do, but when stuff hits the fan, they got to understand what they're, where's the risks at? What's going on here? That's what's important. Same thing is why you want to document everything so you can present that up to leadership. Because if something happens, I think it's as much as the leader's fault as it is, user's fault. So, I mean, everybody has to take responsibility, because it is everybody's responsibility when it comes to cyber nowadays. You don't want to be that one person that clicked on that link and you didn't pay attention to that phishing training, or, you don't want to be that one, you're at home using your BYOD, and, something happened, somebody hacked into it and you didn't tell anybody. And all of a sudden there was some anomalies on the internal network, somebody gained access that way. So, there's a lot of stuff, but leaders definitely creating that good, I guess, mentality of knowing what everybody's doing, knowing who's trained, who's not trained, understanding what people do. I'm not gonna say you got to understand exactly, but at least have an understanding, that kind of like some of these certs, you got to do like that inch deep, a mile wide. That's what leaders should do, is understanding who's doing what, and definitely incorporate all that into their daily routine.
I always like to compare cybersecurity to like home security, and getting mad at your IT guy for something that happened could potentially be like getting mad at getting mad at the person who put your alarm system in when your kid left the front door open. Like,
Yep.
So it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. If that door was locked, that person wasn't going to get in, and then the alarm was going to go off. But they left the door unlocked, and they walked right in and took your stuff.
Yep.
So that's why the point of that is like there is, right, the whole company, whole organization, IT included, they're all equally responsible, because those end users are the first line of defense when it's all said and done, right? They're the ones that are basically blocking and tackling. They're taking all the they're the foot soldiers, if you will, right? They're the ones taking all the beating, and they're probably the most important. They gotta know how to protect and say, this is bad. I don't want this, right? So
no, you're correct, and they should know everybody should know really what's going. I'm not every single little thing, but that's what's good with reporting. Leadership should say, hey, what's going on with these things. It's like training in that, and then it kind of trickles down. It's like, okay, users are, is this in place? Same thing. You got to document it. You got to create a good culture of, understanding where the risks could be. So it's a whole group. It's a team effort from the bottom up, top down. Cyber resources. This is where I kind of live at, is the CISA no-cost cybersecurity services. Cybersecurity assessments is a huge thing. I do on-site assessments. CISA headquarters does the more technical assessments in regards to vulnerability scanning, remote pen tests, phishing campaigns. They do tabletop exercises, you name it, they do it. And this is just a little snippet of what we provide. There's a lot more there. We go from a strategic down to a technical mentality of what we look at. Cyber resilience reviews, I do those on site. They're about an 8-hour long review. We look at what critical service that you provide. It's an 8-hour long review. It's very informal. And we go through the NIST cybersecurity framework. Not every little aspect, but it basically coincides with that. It goes external dependencies management. That's looking at third-party external dependencies. We look at the risk resilience of that as well. And then a cyber infrastructure survey, just basically take a CRR and cut it in half. But it goes all the way down. There is a lot of good stuff that CISA provides for free. And like I said, none of this information is shared with anybody. No media, no other government agencies. It goes in this database protected at the PCI level, and it goes to you. Whoever wants to review, it goes to that person. Whatever you want to do with it, you can do with it what you want. Like I said, it's all voluntary. You can take part in it or not.
And these resources are available to who?
Really anybody.
Anybody.
If you're running any type of organization where you're providing a service, like I said, we're not just sticking on the critical infrastructure side. Now, if let's say the energy company or somebody says, hey, we need to get this done, and then the next day a library says, hey, we want to get this same thing done, we will prioritize from the critical infrastructure side down. But most of the time on our side, it's fine. But any of those other services, you just sign up for it and you take part in it. Another thing, training. We talk about a lot of stuff today. I throw a lot of information at you. Your eyes may be in the back of your head. But if anything you take out of today is take some of the links that I gave you, look at them. I know Derek went on the CISA.gov page and looked at stuff. Take advantage of trainings. Definitely go under this, under the cybersecurity training exercises. FedVTE has a lot of free trainings. Not every training is free because there is some classroom training that costs money, but you can, massage it however you want to what your organization's policies are. So take a look at the training side of the house as well. It's always good to come up with some type of training plan to have that annual training, biannual training for your workforce. You don't want them to become stagnant. You'll see that a lot in the IT side of the house. People work at a job and they keep getting worked to death, and there's really no incentive, no training to help build those skills. Because I think when you're on a cyber side, IT side, you always want to stay fresh with things. If you don't have that opportunity, you're going to get bored and go somewhere else. So that's why I think training is really important as well, and keeping up with what's going on in today's landscape. More resources. I won't bore you with this, but take these slides, go on here and look. Ransomware, a lot of good information there. It's basically understanding what ransomware is, looking at that. If you got hit with ransomware, it's got checklists to bring you back up, as in like, hey, did you back everything up? Bring this back. It's a pretty good guide. The known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, that's just a lot of the latest and greatest known exploited vulnerabilities. CIS offers a lot of in-person and virtual tabletop exercises, a lot of training events, working groups. There's a lot of good stuff on here. Go to that and pay attention. Information sharing, I mentioned this. MSISAC's pretty cool. It's multi-state information sharing and analysis center. But really what it is it's getting everybody involved in, talking about that threat landscape, talking about what's going on out there. And, they do a lot of services as well, no cost, no fee services. We kind of go hand in hand on things. They do vulnerability scans. They also offer some fee for service on their end, but it's definitely good to take a look. If you can be part of any type of information sharing group like FBI's InfraGuard, the MSISAC, sign up for CISA advisories. There's a lot out there. Sign up for a couple of them or a handful, because that keeps you abreast of like, hey, what's going on out here in the real world other than our bubble, I guess, where we're at. And I know on some instances you can join their membership, but they have a conference once a year. This past one was in Baltimore. Next year's is going to be in Utah. So if anybody wants to go out there and have fun in Utah, then you'll be good to go.
Want to go to Utah, do some hiking, maybe some skiing, who knows, whatever. Pick your poison.
Exactly. Reporting. This is huge. I got one next week. I'll be out actually in Baintree. Baintree's down south of you in Pittsburgh. We're up by the airport down there, I guess, or I don't know. I'm down south of you in Pittsburgh. Greentree. Well, I don't know. Greentree, maybe. It's south of you by the airport, I guess. I'm doing a brief on reporting. Okay. Reporting's huge. If you have any type of, anomaly on your network, any phishing, malware, any incidents, DDoS attack, you name it, insider threat, report it. It's under the CISA.gov US CERT report. But if you go under the CISA.gov page, you're going to see that report cyber incident. But if you have anything, if it's in your neck of the woods out there, if it's somebody that um, we're not really reporting what happens at your house, but it's really happening on the your work side. The reason why you do that is we could put the people and tools in place, as in, hey, maybe there's a threat actor targeting you. You get they get the FBI involved. Once you report it here, if there's an actual threat actor, FBI gets involved. If it's more of an asset response, that's myself. I would come in and walk you through the steps and go through that. But also they have this to get that that database of information, who's being targeted. So if you're not reporting it, they're not going to know, like, hey, this network side's getting targeted, or hey, this educational side's being targeted by this threat actor. That's why you report stuff. And also, sometimes if you get hit with ransomware, some of, I guess, Secret Service and other sites, if you report it in time, I think within 24, 48 hours, they can possibly help get your stuff back, or if you paid, get your money back. I don't know. There's a thing that they do on their end, but it's good to report everything.
Yeah.
And
well, you could probably, it seems like most of this stuff comes in waves, right? And you'll get a threat actor or whatnot, and they'll find a niche because it's working, and then they stick to what's working, and then when it stops working, they find something else, and then another wave comes in, right? So the more you report, the more that they can kind of keep track of these waves and the ups and downs of them and things like that.
They gather that intel, and it's not to put anybody on the spot or put them in the news. The reporting is basically just for situational awareness. Is this a true threat? Is this not? Is this just a one-off? You learn from everything. It's I was going to tell you on the ransomware, if anybody knows. So the ransomware has kind of evolved to where we've seen a lot of entities getting hit with ransomware. So at first, the threat actors would gain access to the system, and they're not just going to get into your system and encrypt it right away. They're going to have access to your system for weeks, days, weeks, months. They're going to be getting as much information as they can to kind of see who and what is touching whatever. And then at the right moment, or if they find out that they've been had, they'll flip that switch, boom, encrypted. Hey, we've got, you've been ransomware, pay us X amount of dollars, millions, hundreds of thousands, pay us this ransom. Okay, you pay the ransom. Then at the end, that was like the first part of ransomware. Then it's evolved into, okay, thanks for paying this ransom. Before we decrypt everything, we've also taken all of your personal PI information, proprietary information. If you don't pay us a second ransom, we're going to release this all out on the internet. And they do a second ransom, so people pay for that. Yep. And then you kind of think of the next part of that evolution is cyber insurance. I wish I would have gotten into this when I first started hearing about it. I kind of laughed at it, but it's a true thing now. You got to actually have cyber insurance out there. And, if you get hit with a ransomware or whatnot, they are, they go through their cyber insurance provider. But I see the next evolution, which I've been reading on some blurbs, as the hackers are looking at the cyber insurance companies and hacking into their systems to see who's insured and who has the biggest payouts. So you kind of think of that evolution. So cyber is an evolving, mutating thing that is, it's fun at times. Sometimes it's stressful, but it keeps you on your toes. That's one good thing. I don't think I ever get bored. But that was the end of my brief there.
So you don't get bored, but you could wake up in sweats from time to time, worrying that somebody's trying to get to your stuff. It's like knowing too much information sometimes is bad. But no, this was fantastic, Derek. Honestly, prior to us kind of getting together, this was something that I was familiar with CISA, but not as in depth as I am now. It's amazing all the resources that are available, either at a cost or at no cost, that the government is able to provide to companies of all, companies and people of all different shapes and sizes, right? It's not just like, hey, local government can have this or state. It's like, no, this is for everybody that pays taxes, basically.
Yep. Trying to protect everybody.
Mm-hmm. So good, man. I really appreciate it. It doesn't look like we have time for questions today, but honestly, I had a couple questions that I was teeing up that you answered throughout already. So I'm really happy. I think everything that you have done, it was extremely detailed and extremely beneficial. So I want to just like to take a few minutes to say thank you so much for, spending the time with us today. And, do me a favor and respond back to us. Let us know where that event is going to be at when you're doing the reporting event here in Pittsburgh, because I'd love to attend.
Yeah, I'll send you that here in a little bit. See if you can sign up for that. But no, I thank everybody for joining, or who's ever going to watch this after the fact. And if you have questions for me, you can email me. I think my contact information was on the first slide. If not, Nicole, if you want to pass on my information to whoever,
Absolutely.
anybody can reach out. I'm fine with that. Just don't wake me up at like 2 a.m.
So just as another thank you, I would like to thank Nicole and Casey over here at PGH Networks for putting this on. Everything was fantastic. If it wasn't for you guys, this wouldn't happen. For those of you that weren't able to join us today, visit our YouTube page, right? So this will be posted on our YouTube page as well as a link from our website. I'm sure it's going to be all over our social media because it was an absolute and positive success today. And if you have any questions, Nicole, where should everybody reach out to?
Marketing@pghnetworks.com.
Who will they get to speak with?
Myself or Casey.
There you go. Love it. They're a
Yeah,
lot easier to talk to than I am. So, rest assured, you're in good hands.
And we'll make sure that Derek's PowerPoint is also available to you to include all those links for the free resources for you to go through also, because like they mentioned, it's a wealth of knowledge that's available on there on the CISA site.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. And Derek, fantastic job, man. Keep up the good work.
Hey, thanks, Derek.
Thank
All
you.
right, later.
Have a good one,
Thanks,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.